Hey guys, welcome to the very late May Quick Bits episode. This month we're going to be diving into all of the movies released in the month of May. So, spoiler alert for all of these films popping up on screen right now. Let's get into it. May, The Fall Guy, 2024. Action. The Fall Guy was basically just a fun modern day pop culture movie. And that's not bad. But let's talk about what didn't work. The plot could have been seen from like a mile away, especially with all of the trailers giving us little pieces of details, and you could probably piece them together from there. For example, we could all see Hannah Waddingham as the main villain. Like, I don't think there was any hiding that she was the villain. I mean, like, it wasn't, hey, here's the villain, but you could definitely see that she was set up to be the villain. We also could have guessed that the guy known for playing bad guys was also a bad guy. Another thing that was missing in my book for a film about stuntmen was the admiration for the stuntmen. We did kind of get a little montage towards the end, but even then, all of the stuntmen's names were shown after the main actors' names, and I think it would have been cool if we could have seen the stuntmen on this film and then have the actors. But let's talk about what did work, and there was a lot. First off, the music and the soundtrack in this movie was phenomenal, ranging from Taylor Swift to AC/DC, and I'm also pretty sure the main theme was a Kiss song. There were also a lot of meta jokes about making a movie, and I absolutely loved it. The script popping up at the beginning, the need to get the Comic-Con shot, the questioning of the split screen when they're actually on the split screen. Plus there were a couple fourth wall breaks as well. Pop culture jokes were also littered all over this film, from Winston Duke quoting movies like Rock and Jason Bourne, to mentioning people like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Gandalf. It was amazing. And there was even there were also jokes about having an Oscar category for stunts. Jason Momoa, and then movies like Notting Hill and Thelma and Louise were also made. The action scenes were amazing, and having a former stuntman as a director made this movie 10 times better. There were also a couple of one takes that I could see as well as, and that just added more to the realism. There were unique shots as well. Jodie in the reflection of Colt's sunglasses, yellow and blue lighting during the split screen scene, and then the alien in the background during Jodie and Gale's confrontation scene. Now, for the best thing about this movie could not have been made without Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt's chemistry. It kind of reminds me of Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone's chemistry. Well, I guess Ryan Gosling has chemistry with pretty much everyone, huh? With scenes like the hotel scene and Colt jamming out to Taylor Swift, this movie kept me extremely engaged in regards to the chemistry aspect. As for the grade, I'm going to give it an 85. I just think it was just a fun rom-com action movie for everyone. May, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, 2024. Action. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was one of the more perfect legacy sequels, at least when it comes to establishing the groundwork for a new trilogy. Let's start off with what didn't work. And it was really only one thing, in my opinion. The pacing was off for me. I didn't really grab onto the movie and the plot until halfway in when we met Raka. To be honest, I think it was really just a result of trying to lay the groundwork for this new civilization of apes, which I think they nailed, by the way, but I feel like we should have seen more of Proximus Caesar way earlier. Like, they waited all the way to the end to showcase him. He's the main villain and arguably one of the best characters in the film, but the fact that the first time we saw him was in the last third of the movie is kind of disappointing. But let's talk about what did work. The CGI looked great. It looks the best that it's ever been, and that's what's expected 7 years after the War of the Planet of the Apes. It was a decently funny movie, and we can thank Disney for that. Disney loves to make these types of movies geared towards children, and I think this movie is one of the rare ones that makes the adults think a little bit about the deeper meaning. I did love Raka as the old, wise mentor figure to Noah, but as soon as I realized he was playing that role, I kind of figured he was going to sacrifice himself. But I also love the heroic journey Noah goes on throughout the movie, starting with not being able to get the bird on his arm to becoming the leader of the tribe. I wanted to put this out there because I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. Noah has the same patch of hair missing on his chest, just like Caesar did. So I feel like this could have been a hint that Noah is kind of like a super distant ancestor of Caesar? Question mark? I don't know. But this is one of the movies that has many fantastic things, and I really can't pin down my favorite of the bunch. So I tried my best. After watching the movie, I thought I was going to have the scenery and the world building as the best part of the movie, but after thinking some more, I decided that I liked something a lot more. The intro really started us off perfectly, grabbing our attention, and even though it wavered a little, the little details are what were really important. Like the little details such as how the young apes look up to the older ones, and how Noah doesn't really know who Caesar was, and he was learning about Caesar through Raka. Braxton also told me that Wes Ball is directing the new live-action Zelda movie, and Braxton was so excited because of the forest and all the greenery in this movie, so he hopes that it'll translate over to the new Zelda movie. As for the best thing about the movie, it's going to be the human/ape conflict. It's many generations after Caesar, and the events of those movies really took a toll on the characters in this movie. Apes can now talk to each other almost perfectly, and humans don't even trust apes at all. Matter of fact, apes don't trust humans at all. The fact that Noah trusted May makes the gut punch of May not caring about the apes and only advancing the human race even more heartbreaking. The conflict is at the center part of the story, and even though there is a big battle of Proximus Caesar, I'm not sure it was needed as much as the human-ape dynamic. It definitely sets up the future movies perfectly. Speaking of setting up the future movies perfectly, the ending of this movie, this is one of my favorite endings that I have ever watched. Re-asking the question of if the apes and the humans can live together peacefully was amazing, and it really makes the audience wonder, can they? And then May and Noah go their separate ways, signaling how they're both on separate journeys, and then it cuts to the human outpost where we see more humans waiting on May to save them. And then it cuts back to Noah's home where they are also rebuilding. You really can't critique the writing here because it's almost parallel to how each race is rebuilding. And if you add the score in sneaking through, one of my favorite endings ever. As for the grade, I'm going to give it a 79. And while that may seem like a low grade for all the hype that I was giving it, it's not. I couldn't rate this that high because it's not your typical action flick. It's deeper than that. If I put it on the drama scale, I think it would be way higher than a 79, but I don't know. Maybe after a while I'll readjust, but for now, 79 is what I'm going to give it. May, If, 2024, action. If was a film that I was not emotionally prepared for. Like, I thought it would be a fun little movie with, like, Ryan Reynolds and Steve Carell. They're both comedy legends. Boy, was I wrong. So let's start off with what didn't work, and then we'll get to what did work. We were kind of just thrown into the mix. To be honest, in the first couple minutes, I wasn't exactly sure why Bee was by herself, why she was living with her grandmother, why her dad was in the hospital. I feel just like a little bit more of explanation on these events would have made a little bit more sense. Also, the fact that a 12-year-old is just walking by herself in the middle of the night is probably not the best idea. Now, what did work? The animation in this movie was very cute and unique, and I loved figuring out which characters famous people voiced. But let's talk about the acting while we're on the topic. Steve Carell is always amazing. Even when you can't see his face, his voice and his humor is what makes him the big bucks. Ryan Reynolds also carried this movie big time. It wasn't a traditional sarcastic, lighthearted role that he usually plays. In fact, this role came with a little bit more complex emotional baggage, and he absolutely knocked it out of the park. Kaylee Fleming had a standout performance. Before this movie, I had no idea who she was, but after this movie, I immediately looked her up on IMDb. She played a character that was going through something that every single person has gone through before, growing up. And I think she did that perfectly. Starting off as thinking that she had it all together, And then as the movie progressed, she realized maybe it's not all that great to be an adult. And guess what? She did it beautifully, nailing every single emotional beat. Now for the best thing about this movie, I was really close to putting Michael Giacchino's theme and how well it fit in with the movie. Like there would be a silent emotional moment, and then all of a sudden the score fades in and it makes the scene 10 times more emotional. However, I did decide against it, and instead I chose the emotional message that pops up when you least expect it. Like I said, going into this movie, I thought I would have a lot of fun with the humor that Ryan Reynolds and Steve Carell bring, but literally not even 10 minutes in, I got hit in the feels. And this movie had me on the edge of my seat. There were so many messages that John Krasinski hid in this movie. The whole conversation with Lewis about how memories are extremely important and how they live forever. How you're not supposed to forget about your childhood, even in the toughest of times. I mean, I really do this, but look at my notes from the finale. I'm just going to read them off here and they'll pop up on the screen. Memories live forever. Chills. The message in this movie. Chills. Don't forget your childhood. This is a rough movie. The score is greater. And all of the ifs are there. I was not emotionally prepared for this. Holy, I'm just a kid. I'm going to lose it. No, she can't see him anymore. Ifs made her remember her childhood. Oh man, just when I thought I was safe. What an ending. That's crazy. Yeah, as for the score, I'm gonna give it a 90 on the animation scale. I really thought it was that good, and it really made me reminisce about my childhood. May Furiosa 2024 action. Furiosa was another successful delivery of a cinematic experience. You really can't say that George Miller doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to these films. But before we get into the good stuff, let's talk about what didn't work. I feel like this movie slammed on the gas and never let up. A lot of stuff just kind of gets thrown at us, and the movie kind of jumps around from time to time. But with that being said, let's talk about what did work. The movie tied up loose ends extremely well. If you did a double feature of this movie and Fury Road, everything would line up perfectly. The tone, the plot, the cinematography, stuff like the names of the actors popping up at the start, to Furiosa helping the wives escape at the end. The world building was needed in this movie, maybe even more so than Fury Road, and let me tell you, it delivered. I had no idea that there were multiple towns and resources. I guess I skipped over that part in Fury Road, but this movie definitely made sure that the audience paid attention. This movie was also, like, pretty gory when you think about it. Like, the punishment that Jack and Furiosa experienced was pretty brutal. Let's talk about the acting real quick. Anya Taylor-Joy really captured the essence of Furiosa that Charlize Theron really created. It also doesn't hurt that Anya Taylor-Joy looks exactly like Charlize Theron. I mean, the writing did help flesh out Furiosa as a person. Stuff like showing her quick wits by cutting the fuel lines. But I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy really did solidify herself in the action genre with this movie. Especially that last scene with Dementis. She's no longer the girl from The Menu or the British lady from that one chess show. She is Furiosa. That being said, I usually like to save the main characters for last, like Anya Taylor-Joy. But I mean, Chris Hemsworth was absolutely incredible as Dementis. He acts insane, but it's just a facade that he's putting on. You don't get to be the ruler of Gastown without being smart. The Australian accent helped out big time, especially with the lines like, "Mummy Dovey." But these Marvel actors are really showing us something when they turn into the bad guys. As for the best thing about this movie, it's the action shots and cinematography. I mean, could it be anything else? You never really watch these movies for the plot. Instead, you watch it for the crazy and unique camera angles that they can come up with. Again, this movie delivered on its fast-paced action promise to mirror Fury Road. The quick cuts to the scenery and then back to the main characters were totally unexpected, but it totally worked out due to the world that was created around the characters. There was a fade-in, and I can't quite remember when it was, but it faded in and out on the tree and how it like started growing. almost like how Furiosa grew from the time when we last saw her. One shot that I loved was when Furiosa is just on a road by herself. There was no score, no effects, just silence. That being said, the first moving rig scene blew my mind out of the water. I guess if you have 10 years to think about the new shots and how you're going to do them, that's what you come up with. And let me tell you, it was amazing. As for the grade, I'm going to give it a 92. Even though it didn't get the box office success that it deserved, it was one of the movies of the year, in my opinion. May, the Garfield movie 2024, action. The Garfield movie was a fun movie with a lot of voice actors. And that's about it. Let's talk about what didn't work. This movie was extremely bland. Other than the voice acting, there wasn't much that really worked. Good animated movies have messages that are hidden underneath of the humor. In this movie, there were no big messages underneath the animation, other than, like, love your loved ones. It also feels like this movie was made for kids under the age of 10. But that being said, let's talk about what did work. The animation was great, especially on the train sequence. Every one of Garfield's hairs were blowing in the wind, which is good attention to detail. The setting of the factory was also very well made. I wish we could have had more of the movie in there because I loved the different animation choices that were chosen in that setting. Another thing that I did like were the meta nods that Garfield talked about. There were a couple fourth wall breaks layered in there, and there was also an awful Monday montage that I could definitely relate to. With the meta nods came pop culture references to Mission Impossible and the Top Gun themes, which I really enjoyed for some reason. Braxton and I both really enjoyed John's turmoil throughout the movie. Poor John lost his pets, he found them, lost them again, got put on hold multiple times, and then his bank account is probably drained because of the 6,000 drone orders by Garfield. And then finally, for the best thing about this movie, it's going to be the voice acting, specifically Chris Pratt. For everyone being mad that Chris Pratt is in everything, I think he did really well in this movie, making Garfield his own. As for the grade, I'm going to give it a 75, which is low, but it's just another animated movie that can be played in the background. Alright, so for the updating ratings, since there were no drama, thriller, horror, comedy movies, they stayed the same. However, the top movies list changes. We have 2 new movies in Furiosa and If, pushing out John Wick and Equalizer out of the top movies. As for action, Furiosa and The Fall Guy slide into the top 10 action movies. While on page 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes slides in after Roadhouse at a 79. And then finally we go to the animation, where If slides in after Spider-Man at a 90, and Garfield slides in after Super Mario Bros. At a 75. And that's going to be it for this month's delayed edition of Quick Bits. Next month is the month of June, and there's a lot of good movies in June and July, but we're gonna start with June at some point whenever I decide to upload the June Quick Bits.